Monkeypox has been declared a global health emergency. The police released body cam footage from the Andrew Sundberg shooting. Malcolm Nance is back in the news for saying crazy things. And Tom Cruise is right after 20 years about antidepressants. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Monday, July 25th, and I couldn't be happier than to start this fine week off with all of you, true American patriots, where we can come together, go over the stories of the day, and bring you all the news and information you need to know about. So as always, if you want to join us here at The Bald Brad Show and you're over at YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're over at Rumble, hit the plus and give us a comment down below. And if you're listening on any of the podcast airwaves, Google, Apple, Spotify, etc., leave us a lovely 5-star review. Not only would you be supporting conservative, but you'd be helping getting conservative thought and ideas out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help and support would be greatly appreciated. As you can imagine, heck of a weekend, tons of news to cover. So let's jump right into our lead story of the day regarding the World Health Organization declaring monkeypox a global health emergency, which the group's director says is spreading rapidly through new modes of transportation. Now you might be wondering, what are these new modes of transportation, Brad? What the hell is he talking about? Well, we got all the information for you today. We'll go over it in just one moment. Despite a World Health Organization panel not having consensus on labeling the sickness a global health emergency, the leader took it upon himself to declare a public health emergency of international concern. The leader said, quote, "We have an outbreak that spreads around the world rapidly through new modes of transportation, which we understand too little, which meets the criteria." So what are these new modes of transportation? Well, the disease, which primarily spreads among men who have sex with men, joins both COVID and polio as other diseases designated as international emergencies by Global Health Organization. So he's making it seem like this whole thing is spreading through general population, when in actuality it's spreading through bisexual and gay couples. The LGBTQ community is where it's spreading, but he doesn't want to spread that out there because he might have some backlash against that community. So he's going to use the words new modes of transportation. While monkeypox has long been prevalent in parts of Africa, it has been spreading around the world in recent months after circulating at raves in Europe. Excluding Africa, there are about 16,000 cases worldwide, including 3,000 in the United States. There have been no known deaths to date from the disease outside of Africa. After the World Health Organization panel did not unanimously decide that monkeypox needed to be international efforts to crack down on its spread, the leader made the decision to elevate the response to the disease and said that the process of declaring an emergency needed to be redesigned. It's amazing. Why even have a panel? Why have a vote at the end of the day? If you're just going to take it upon yourself as a leader, be like, screw you guys. I'm just going to say it myself. Why have the panel? And you see this all the time from the left, right? Especially the Democrat Party. When they don't get their way, all of a sudden things need to be redesigned. We saw this during COVID with the Great Reset idea coming from the elites. You also see this from the Democrat Party regarding the Supreme Court. When things don't go their way or they don't get their decision, all of a sudden they need to pack the courts, redesign everything, abolish it, get rid of it, burn it. It's just how they think. So it's like, why even have a republic? Why even have a vote? Why even have a democracy in certain organizations or a country if you're just going to take it upon yourself to do whatever it is you need to do because you don't agree with everybody else? Quote, "The process demonstrates once again that this vital tool needs to be sharpened to make it more effective. The disease, which leads to lesions and rashes on the skin, is spread through close contact. It is also known to cause those who have it pain when using the bathroom." Quote, this comes from Columbia University, "We have seen patients with severe rectal pain that worsens every time they go to the bathroom, general pain every time they urinate, and throat pain every time they swallow. A new study suggests that monkeypox is also largely sexually transmitted." Quote, "These data points clearly show clearly the fact that infections are so far almost exclusively occurring among men who have sex with men." So gay people. But we keep saying this whole new modes of transportation thing coming from the leader. Just be specific. And you want to be specific if it's causing this much of alarm where you're saying that you need to declare a global health emergency, but you're going to kind of be general and kind of non-specific. It just doesn't make sense to me. Quote, "And the clinical presentation of those infections suggests that sexual transmission, not just close physical contact, but maybe helping spread the virus among this population." So the LGBTQ community is spreading all this stuff and they don't want to be specific about it. We got to read between the lines and actually get in the fine nitty-gritty details of how this thing is spreading, which is mind-boggling. But leave it up to the World Health Organization, the same people that wanted to rub the shoulders of China when you had this Wuhan lab leak of a thing called COVID-19 just take the world by storm. But we won't get into all that because we don't get removed off YouTube Furthermore, monkeypox has been detected in water, the wastewater in a key California region where I live. Monkeypox has been detected in San Francisco area water. Now, the reason why this is kind of interesting is because if you know anything about San Francisco, heavily left, heavily LGBTQ, a lot of gay people around there. So there is something a little interesting and a little bit of a correlation between San Francisco, monkeypox, and gay people. So, well, it's in the wastewater as the virus that plagues many gay men continues to surge in certain areas around the country. Stanford's Sewer Coronavirus Alert Network, who even knew there was such a thing, recently added monkeypox to the list of viruses it checks for in wastewater. Since adding it, monkeypox has been detected in 10 of the 11 sewer systems that scan tests, including one in Sacramento, Palo Alto, and several other cities in California's Bay Area. Quote, the Bay Area is a forefront of wastewater surveillance because we are Silicon Valley after all. This comes from a Stanford professor who studies how pathogens spread. But it's not that America has monkeypox in the wastewater and no place else does. So Paul Sperry gives this tweet out there and cites the CDC.gov regarding monkeypox in the United States and says New England Journal of Medicine finds that 98% of monkeypox patients equal homo/bisexual men, 41% of whom have HIV. Yet the mainstream media have tried to portray as pandemic affecting general population to stop gay stigma. Even CDC says spread through anus butthole. So, well, we're getting through the specifics, folks. And again, this is something the World Health Organization doesn't necessarily want to do. They want to not kind of portray that type of stigma and really just being outspoken about it. They want to kind of throw it under the rug and kind of be kind of generalized about the whole thing. It's just all silly. More than 2,500 cases of monkeypox have been recorded in the U.S. in recent months. In the current resurgence, the virus has turned up in 74 countries, including 68 that have never seen it. Earlier this week, the World Health Organization declared monkeypox, obviously a global health issue. And look, you know, do I think it's ready to be called a global health issue? No. So, I mean, you're not even in the millions of cases. Nobody's died of it. But he's just going to take it upon himself. Be like, screw all you guys. I'm just going to declare this thing and create hysteria. And also, the reason why this is a problem, too, is because you have the November elections coming up. And whenever there's hysteria, people tend to want to have protection from their government, which is when you get a lot of the libs, a lot of Democrats coming out to vote. This is also another issue that they might shut things down come this fall. Now you have the voting issue happening back where people are getting 5 ballots and people are voting 5 times. Dead people are voting, all for Democrats, by the way. So you get all this weird stuff going on, which poses a little bit of a problem coming the midterms because Democrats know they're going to get shellacked. And so now you got this guy working in conjunction with who knows, pushing this whole global thing out there. Lord only knows what's going to happen come November in a couple months regarding monkeypox. Things might shut down. It also affects gas prices and oil companies. You have Joe Biden saying, drill, drill, drill. You have all these permits, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, why would they jump in and start drilling everywhere and utilizing those permits when there's a possibility that the economy might be shut down again? You have Los Angeles talking about it. San Francisco's talked about it. California as a whole's talked about it. You've talked about having schools shut down, masked up again. The teacher unions are putting a mandate in place or want to put a mandate in place from the NEA saying we want masks back. So you have this volatile economy and market, and you're demanding these companies do certain things and invest in certain things when it might not be such a good idea. So monkeypox is now spreading among the LGBTQ plus community, but we'll see where things go. I will keep you up to date with all of that. Speaking of keeping you up to date on everything, just the other week, we talked about Black Lives Matter protest in supporting this young man named Andrew Sundberg, who shot through a door into a mother's apartment who has black children, by the way. And Black Lives Matter thought it would be a good idea to protest him getting shot by the police because he had a weapon and was acting crazy, shooting at a mother with kids and at police, which we'll get to in a second because we have body cam footage released. They thought it was a good idea to protest. Well, the mom showed up that was shot at and just went berserk on them, yelling at them, and rightfully so, because it shows the contradiction. It shows that you have some people who go, I can't believe that you're willing to support this guy who just shot at me and my young children who are black as well, but you were never to be found when this guy was clearly going through mental illnesses, bursting his music loud, going through some serious problems. You were never around. And we see this consistently from the Black Lives community. They're nowhere to be found. They're not actually there to help the black community, which is why in some areas, like the video we showed the other week with the guy with the bullhorn shouting out in protest of the police brutality, and went up the body cam footage released and all this other stuff. You got the landscaping all shellacked, all messed up. How about you invest a little bit in your communities? If you're not going to invest in these young men and women who live within those communities, at least do a little bit of damn landscaping. But no, they want to spend $6 million on a freaking mansion, multiple mansions, and say it's for black content, black creator content, which isn't even being utilized. So we finally have the body cam footage of this coming out, and it just supports, again, the police officers doing their job right, protecting the citizens, protecting the community, and it just shows how dumb Black Lives Matter is for going out and supporting this guy that freaking shot at police as well as the young woman with kids. Let's go ahead and roll this tape from CBS Minnesota.
Investigators say newly released videos show Minneapolis police officers under fire.
But their body cameras failed to capture the end of last week's standoff when snipers took the life of 20-year-old Tekle Sundberg. Our John Lordson's here with what those police videos do show. John?
Frank, a spokesman says investigators poured over hours of Minneapolis police body cam footage. Today they showed reporters the first moments officers arrived on scene and the final moments of a more than 6-hour standoff. 4 minutes after Minneapolis police officer arrives on scene, you hear 3 gunshots fired through an apartment door.
Police department. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Minutes later, police are able to get Arabella Yarbrough, the woman who called 911, and her 2 small children out of their apartment safely. Yarbrough says Tekle Sundberg was shooting through her door, and she talked with WCCO on Friday.
Just got pictures, too, that it went through my bedroom. So me and my kids were in the bedroom at the time, and I was on the floor.
For several hours, police attempted to talk Sundberg into coming out peacefully. At times, he can be seen leaning outside of his apartment, holding a cell phone.
Mr. Sundberg, we need you to come out and cooperate with us. We don't want to hurt you, we just want to go home.
He's threatening to shoot the officers, and he's breaking up some of his windows.
Then more gunshots can be heard coming from the apartment.
There's a gunshot. 109 shots fired, 2 shots so far.
A neighbor shared this video with us last week of Sundberg's final moments. He's seen breaking out a window, and witnesses think he has something in his hand.
He got a gun knife. Oh my God. He's got a knife.
The end of the police video shows officers Pearson and Seraphine positioned on a rooftop across the street.
Gun.
But it does not capture Sundberg getting shot. Police are asking anyone with videos of the standoff to share them with the BCA. Sundberg's family says he struggled with mental health and was likely in crisis. Interim Police Chief Amelia Huffman said officers worked toward a peaceful resolution. She thanked them for their service and bravery under fire.
It just goes to show you that Black Lives Matter will protest anytime a black person is shot by the police. Regardless of the evidence, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of what happened, it's always the police's fault, which is why they'll be out there in the streets protesting the police while they'll be supporting a guy that literally shot multiple times through a door at the police, who said that they were the police, shot at a woman multiple times in her apartment with her kids who were black as well, shot out of a window in his apartment, was given multiple opportunities to come down peacefully, didn't want to do it. So when he shot dead, they're all up in arms because of, oh, they could have done this, oh, they could have done that. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. How about what that guy could have done? Maybe he couldn't have shot at police. Maybe he couldn't have shot at an apartment. Maybe he couldn't shot out his window or broken the window or held everybody up and done everything that he did. But again, Black Lives Matter doesn't want to talk about it. They just want to go out and protest and do crazy things and say crazy things and try to appease a certain base that believes in some fictitious world where America is institutionally racist. It's so mind-boggling, this organization, and that they're still getting funding. They get millions of dollars in charity donations to spend on a $6 million mansion amongst white people that they hate and don't like, according to the Marxist leaders from the organization itself. And there's upwards of like $60 million that just gone missing. But again, nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody just wants to keep pouring into an organization where you're not actually seeing any benefit or return. I mean, when you look at the video of Black Lives Matter protesting this whole incident, just look at the landscaping. The very least, if they're not going to invest in that person that clearly had mental health issues, Black Lives Matter was nowhere to be found then. Why don't you just invest it in your own community then by upgrading your landscaping and give some of the money back to the community that's given it to you? Because clearly you ain't giving it to these young black men or women that are committing crimes or getting shot by police, or maybe go over some sort of treatment to help them with their decision making, to not make multiple series of decisions that lead to their death. We can't talk about any of those things. We just need to push this crazy ass narrative where police are gunning down black men in the streets, hands up, don't shoot, all this crazy stuff. It's just Black Lives Matter is just a terrible organization. Everybody agrees with the general purpose. Black lives do matter. They're lives. I mean, race doesn't matter, just lives matter. In general, there's some heinous people out there where their lives don't matter. But for the most part, white lives, Asian lives, black lives, Jewish lives, Muslim lives matter. But they're going to push this whole narrative that people just can't get behind because it's crazy and the things that they support are crazy, and they'll continue to support crazy things. Well, speaking of crazy things and crazy people, we have Malcolm Nance back in the news. If you don't remember who this guy is, he's an MSNBC analyst. And the last time we talked about him on the show, we did a breakdown video between him and Ben Shapiro on Bill Maher's show regarding critical race theory and just the outlandish things that this guy would say. It was truly mind-boggling. If you haven't seen it, I'll try to remember to leave a card above. It's a really good video, and we really do break down the arguments and expose this guy for the knuckleheads he's saying. Well, he's back saying knucklehead things, and we'll go over the clip in just one moment. MSNBC analyst Malcolm Nance predicted that a litany of horrors and injustices would certainly follow if Republicans were successful in their efforts to retake control of the House, the Senate, or both in November's midterm elections. Nance spoke with SiriusXM radio host Dean Abdallah on Friday about the upcoming elections, and he made it clear that the seriousness of the predicament in which Democrats find themselves could not be oversold. Here's the clip and the crazy things that Malcolm Nance was saying.
What should Democrats be doing?
There it is. It's battle stations.
Okay.
The Democrats, Joe Biden, all the rest of them need to understand they are, what are we, July, August, September, October, November. You are 4 months from the end of American democracy. 4 months. And we said that in 2020, and that was true then too, right? But now you're talking about putting a party in power in which there will never be another election. They will vote through every piece of legislation and defund every component of the United States government. They're not joking about impeaching Joe Biden every week, okay, and Kamala Harris, and getting rid of people or expanding the Supreme Court, whatever it is they think they can do, even though some of it's crazy. First thing that they said, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert said, we will criminally prosecute every person who took part in the January 6th investigation. They're talking about militarizing as a dictatorship, as a Duma, like in Russia, Congress. This will be the end of Congress. We've already seen the end of the Supreme Court. We've seen the Supreme Court is no longer an instrument of justice. It is a political body that is looking out for its own personal political interest. Well, Congress could end this November. And, I don't say this lightly. You have to fight here. This is the time. You've got 4 months to mobilize 20% new voters and get every voter that voted in 2021 out there. And I'll likely be back before the American election. The war is trending very well towards Ukraine. I'm certain we will have things in hand by November.
I mean, that's the Democrat Party for you, folks. That's Malcolm Nance for you. It's one of those scenarios and situations where you have somebody that says so many crazy, bonkers things that you actually don't know where to start. So I'm just going to kind of pick and choose a few things because, folks, we'll be here for freaking days. So he said here, this guy, they will vote through every piece of legislation and defund every component of the United States government. It just shows you once again that the Democrats don't have any idea what conservatives and Republicans actually want to do and what we believe in. And it's kind of funny he talks about defunding things because the Democrat Party just got done defunding the police departments, and then crime went through the roof, especially in leftist-dominated areas where they implemented that type of stuff. And now they're trying to refund with billions of dollars to the police department because they realized their mistake. But he's going to talk about us defunding every component of the United States government. Come on. And he also talked about going on to predict multiple impeachments and even suggested that Republicans would act to expand the Supreme Court. So he says, quote, they're not joking about impeaching Joe Biden every week, okay? And Kamala Harris and getting rid of people and or, expanding the Supreme Court, whatever it is they think they can do, even though some of it's crazy. We haven't talked about expanding the Supreme Court. That is you guys, you idiot. Like, what is he talking about? As far as I know, I'm not aware of that many Republicans talking about impeaching Joe Biden. Do I think he should be in office? Of course not. But I don't think he should be impeached. I don't have enough evidence to make that claim yet. I don't think he's all there. I don't think he's a good president. But again, I know Ben Shapiro hasn't said it. I haven't said it. Steven Crowder hasn't said it. Like, a lot of people haven't really been pushing the impeachment agenda. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Nance went on to claim that Republicans, on the suggestion of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, would criminally prosecute anyone who played a role in investigation January 6th. Just because you got some knuckleheads that said something doesn't mean that's actually going to go forward. And this is the part that just is truly mind-blowing. He said, quote, "This will be the end of Congress. We've already seen the end of the Supreme Court. We've seen the Supreme Court is no longer an instrument of justice. It's a political body that is looking out for its own political interests. Well, Congress could end this November." So he's literally talking about Congress ending, Republicans abolishing it, and say the Supreme Court's out for its own interests, but, you know, wasn't out for its own interests during the time of Griswold v. Connecticut or Roe v. Wade. At that point, it wasn't for its own interests, where it literally made up rights, the right to the zone of privacy, converting it to the right to privacy, finding in there the right to abortion under the right of privacy itself, and then expanding upon that because there's emanations and shadows where you can find rights that aren't listed in the Constitution anywhere. But Malcolm Nance is going to come out and continue his charades to say asinine things, and somehow nobody says and kind of questions him on it. Be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, are you hopped up on something? It's amazing that this guy gets coverage. It's amazing this guy is on news. There's a lot more rational people on YouTube that you could bring on your station. And that guy was just like shaking his head. Yeah, no, yeah, everything you're saying is right. Rather than like looking around going, is anybody hearing this? And maybe stopping the guy and going, hey, hold on, let's break this apart here. You're saying some pretty asinine things. But the only person I've seen really do it, kind of question this guy, was Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro made him look like an idiot on Bill Maher. Like I said, go over and check out that segment. I think it's worth watching. So it just... you had some crazy shenanigans taking place with him. And then 20 years ago, there was crazy shenanigans with Tom Cruise, which brings us to our last story of the day. Tom Cruise interview from nearly 20 years ago sparks new debate about antidepressants and Scientology. And it's leaning in Tom's favor, folks. I mean, he got a lot of pushback regarding the Oprah Winfrey debacle when he started dating Katie Holmes. And then you had this right here with the Today Show, where he talked about antidepressants with Matt Lauer. If you don't remember, I'll show you the clip here in a moment, but there was an interview with Tom Cruise nearly 20 years ago, and it's resurfaced and sparked new debate about antidepressants and Scientology because there was a new study that came out, which we'll talk about in just one moment. But let's go ahead and roll the clip from Tom Cruise, one of the greats, as Donald Trump might say, with his kind of controversial statements with Matt Lauer. Let's roll it.
Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses, of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against Brooke's will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do. All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer, that these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that so that we don't end up in a brave new world.
Yes, there are abuses. And yes, maybe they've gone too far in certain areas. Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric shock.
Too many kids on Ritalin, Matt.
I'm just saying, but aren't there examples where it works?
Matt, you don't even, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is. If you start talking about chemical imbalance, you have to evaluate and read the research papers on how they came up with these theories, Matt, okay? That's what I've done. And you go and you say, where's the medical test? Where's the blood test that says how much Ritalin you're supposed to get?
It's very impressive to listen to you because clearly you've done the homework and you know the subject.
And you should. And you should do that also because just knowing people who are on Ritalin isn't enough. You should be a little bit more responsible in knowing
I'm
really...
not prescribing Ritalin, Tom, and I'm not asking anyone else to do it.
Well, you are. You're saying... No,
I know some people who seem to have been helped by it.
But you're saying, but it's like, this is a very important issue.
I couldn't agree more.
And you know what? And you're here on the Today Show.
Right.
And to talk about it in a way of saying, well, isn't it okay, and being reasonable about it when you don't know, and I do. I think that you should be a little bit more responsible in knowing what it is, because you communicate to people.
Look, folks, I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. Some might say a groupie or part of the TC club, and I've been following him my entire life. And actually, oddly enough, I looked a lot like him when I was younger, which helped me get into acting. And because I look so much like him, it got me my first agent and manager. So I've been following him my entire life, even auditioning for roles that he did when he was younger to do student thesis films, short films, some feature films. So a lot of credit goes to him for being famous and getting me a really cool hobby, not a career, but a really fun hobby. And I'm sure, look, he probably looked at that footage and goes, I should have went about it a totally different way, and looked back on the mistakes that he made. I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying I agree in the way that he technically handled it. Could have been done way differently. But look, he wasn't really wrong, because researchers from University College London released a study last week that concluded that there is no clear evidence that serotonin levels or serotonin activity is responsible for depression. Quote, the popularity of the chemical imbalance theory of depression has coincided with a huge increase in the use of antidepressants. Prescriptions for antidepressants has risen dramatically since the 1990s, with 1 in 6 adults in England and 2% of teenagers now being prescribed an antidepressant in a given year, which is crazy. Another quote here says, our view is that patients should not be told that depression is caused by low serotonin or by a chemical imbalance, and that they should not be led to believe that depressants work by targeting these unproven abnormalities. Sounds a lot like what Tom Cruise was saying, and sounds a lot like what Matt Lauer was pushing back on. So 20 years later, turns out Tom was pretty much right. And this led to many commentators online praising Cruise for his cautioning against antidepressants, with podcast host Michael Knowles saying this interview has aged like a fine wine, which is true. You also have Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire saying Tom Cruise has been mocked ruthlessly for the last 20 years, and yet everything he said was 100% undeniably true. Journalist Cheryl Atkinson added, not that long ago, people were allowed to say these things in America without being censored or canceled. Today, not so much. Still, this file tape survives, and thank God. I'm sure Tom is stoked about it as well, because now he's having a little bit of I don't know if the word reclamation is a good word to use, but hey, he's coming back in a good way in terms of being proven right. But this has led to other online commentators arguing that Cruise's position against antidepressants and psychiatry is the same stance as Scientology. Now, look, true could be both at the same time. Scientology could be preaching the same thing, and it just so happens to be true in real life as well. I'm not a Scientology fan. I'm not part of Scientology. I'm a Christian. But look, both could be true at the same time. But you had podcast host Eric Erickson tweeting, there's no reason to normalize Tom Cruise's statements on psychiatry because he is saying what you think. Cruise's position comes from Scientology, which very much should not be given credit or normalized. And then you have a former staff member of the Church of Scientology saying Tom Cruise's position isn't making the point that you think he's making. Behind a statement that psychiatric drugs only mask the problem lies in his belief that only Scientology can fix the problem, the real problem, i.e. the reactive mind and the body theatins. Again, both could be true at the same time. He was still correct in terms of what those drugs do, and it only masks the problem. Depression is a very serious thing. I know a lot of people that struggle with depression. Thank God I don't. And I don't necessarily believe that a drug should just mask the problem rather than fixing it, because once that drug is gone, then the problem's just back. And you see this a lot within the LGBTQ plus community, relying on certain drugs to just get through. And if it is helping them, great. But again, it needs to fix the problem and stop pushing a certain narrative upon people and telling them it's going to fix the problem or is fixing the problem, when in actuality, now we have a study done that doesn't necessarily make those statements true, since it was being pushed as truth long ago. So Tom Cruise is right. I'm sure he's happy for some sort of vengeance here, just even though he didn't really have part in that vengeance coming about, it just so happened to come to him. But, you know, he's $1 billion plus at the box office now with Maverick, and now he's having some sort of redemption here regarding his Matt Lauer Today Show clip. So there's all the news and information I'm bringing you today. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Make sure you support us by hitting that like and subscribe button and a nice 5-star review, that plus a comment down at Rumble. And folks, I will see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.